In today's episode of the show, we are joined by a model. Her name is Breona Wilson, and she's an absolutely beautiful individual. She's such a big heart, and she's so... In the show, Breona shares with us what... In the show, Breona shares... Hello everyone, welcome back to the episode of the Creators Connect series. My name is Luca, but you can call me that camera guy. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your love and support. I truly appreciate it. And if you are new here, please do consider subscribing if you like this video. And today's episode of the show, we are joined by a model with the biggest heart ever. Her name is Breona Wilson, and she's been modeling for 10 years. In the show, Breona tells us what her favorite part of being in this creative space is, and she also tells us what her goals and plans are for the future of her creative journey. So just sit back, relax, let's connect with Breona. Thank you so much, Breona, for being here. It definitely means a lot. I think I said it already, that you've taken time out of your schedule to sit down and chat with me about your creativity and the creative journey that you've had so far. So it definitely means a lot for you, a lot to me for you being here. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So my first question is going to be, who is Breona Wilson? If people approach you and if you're starting a conversation and you're explaining what you do, creatively or otherwise, how do you say that? Who is Breona Wilson?
I guess in a lot of ways I would, because it's a very complex question.
Okay.
It's not really a short story, but I would love to have a very simple answer for people. So when someone, because I have had that question before, when people have asked me, who you are as a person. I think who Breona is maybe someone who just wants to get the best out of life, especially with my creative career. I think the short answer is Breona is a adventurous and very complex personality of things. But yeah, I think, when I look back on her as a story of myself, I see her as somebody who just loves opportunity, who just loves to be able to maybe attempt things other people wouldn't attempt, which is obviously what I do right now. There's a lot of things I do people wouldn't do. So
yeah, and I think it's always a difficult space to be in and trying to figure out who you are and trying to define it. It's not always easy, especially if you're a creative person. There's just like a vast and wide range of things that could describe you, and you can't just say it in a simple sentence. So it makes sense to hear you say what you're saying, but in that you're adventurous, and there's a vast array of things that you're doing or would like to do, which is super cool. But my reaching out to you was because of what I saw on your Instagram, which is that you do a lot of modeling. How long have you been doing that? And tell us the story behind the creative journey in terms of modeling.
So how I've been doing it for 10 years. So I got started when I was 13. And so to be honest, it really wasn't.
That's a long time.
A long time. You think I'd be a professional at this by now. You think I'd be in front of Vogue at this point. You feel like I'd have some kind of make or break moment here. So originally, the story kind of behind it was I was originally not actually planning on becoming a model at 13. I have a lot of family that's from the military, and originally my goal was to join the Marines. That was my goal. I had been talking, to different people, soldiers. I'd go to, academies and talk to people about it. And so joining the Marines was, one of my biggest goals. But what ended up happening, in general, what that was, it's just kind of funny how it was actually a Vogue model who saw me. And wow. She said, "Oh my gosh, I love your look. You're young, but you're so pretty. I love your look. Is there a way you would want to get into it. And I said, I don't know. And so she was, again, she's my model mama. That's why I call her, because she trained me for so many years. And so I really, look up to her and everything now. But her name is Jana. Jana was really helpful to help me. And so she said, okay, listen, if you're not comfortable doing it, at least just come to this one photo shoot. I'll pay for everything. I'll do everything for you. Please just come. Please just come. And so I said, fine, okay. And so I came, and I can't particularly remember who came. I think it was my dad who came to the photo shoot just to be supportive. But he came and kind of sat back and watched the whole thing. And it was insane how those hairstylists, makeup artists, designers, they were all there to really give me the experience, all because this Vogue model really wanted me to do this. And I did it. And after I kind of left, I sat there and I kept thinking, wow, I think this is something I could, really get into. I could really get into this. And so originally I was going to be a military girl, but it took a whole different turn.
Wow. I mean, that happens a lot in life. We grow up with different ambitions, but it just seems like God always has different plans for us that are just sort of set in stone. We don't see it coming sometimes, and sometimes we do see it coming, but it's sort of nice to hear how now we make plans, and it's just like God's like, no, this is not what I want you to do. This is the path that I want you to take, which is pretty awesome. It's actually pretty cool. But it's funny that you mentioned that you're not a pro yet. But I was just looking at your Instagram, and you're creeping to like 100,000 followers on Instagram. So my question is, when does one become a pro? Like, is not 100,000 followers significant enough to attract the right kind of attention?
So I'll try and give a short answer, because there are two different answers to that.
Okay.
So I've seen many girls, that are professional that say, oh, I'm a professional because I've done this or I've done that. And I've had that question before. I had one of their, and, thankfully, because of fans who, messaged me and things like that. One girl messaged me and she said, what makes you a professional compared to, other girls and, or whatever, or what's the difference between a professional model and Instagram? Do you know what I'm saying? And so she was very curious about it. And I said, a professional, someone gets either paid for a photo shoot or just being able to be provided with incredible opportunities, runway, being published in things. And so there's different variables when it comes to being the term professional. But also, because you would think with the 100,000, like, yeah, you're a professional.
Yeah. I'm like, woo.
Because I saw, because I opened my phone like 2 days ago. I'm like, oh dear hell, I hit it, didn't I?
That's crazy.
It is. Do you know, I tried to do an experiment the other day. I hit 100,000, and so I started counting how many messages I was getting. And I'm like, I feel like I should count how many messages I get. And I lost track. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is how bad it is. It's when you lose track of how many people message you. I couldn't even keep how many. Anyway, the point of my answer is, it can be anywhere from being published, runway, things like that. But the other side to your 100,000, question answer is I've learned from, there's other models I've seen on here like Sarah Underwood or Abigail Ratchford, these girls that have been in Maximum, Vogue, things like that. And they're like 20 million, like girls that really know what they're doing. And she did a video once where she said, I don't have an agency, and she said, but what makes me professional is that I build I would start to build my following. And then she said I would start making like fan merch, and people would buy it. So it would provide my modeling income. And so, and that's something I think I'm really wanting to pursue. Not only do I have the experience, but I'm, cause I'm short. That's the problem in the modeling industry. If you're short, you're screwed. That's the problem. And so there's like Sarah Underwood, she has, again, like 20 million, like she's, these two top girls I have tried to follow through as the example of what I would be really interested in following or how their careers have started. And she's 5'3". I'm 5'4.5". But she's an international model, like literally. And same thing. She's like, I don't have an agency. But how I got started was, I started reaching a certain following to where I knew people were dedicated to me. And I could become a full-time model off of selling fan merch or doing different things like that could provide me to be able to fund the photo shoots or fund different things. And I could travel, and it really could, I could do what I wanted in life. And so I feel like there's two different perspectives. There's being a professional tall, gazelle, like Taylor Swift, dear God, and, have an agency and be in all these different things. And there's girls in me in my situation, you have this big following and things like that. But you almost have to find another scenario how to make things work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that's...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, you actually mentioned something very interesting there. It's that you're short. And I mean, it just seems that there's a certain criteria that agencies and magazines and things like that are looking for in a model. And it's unfortunate that being short, just who you are, puts you at a disadvantage. But how are you able then to deal with that kind of, pressure or navigate through situations where the market's not really suited for you, but you're sort of determined to get what you want and reach the goal that you want to reach? How do you work through that?
I think, so for me personally, what I've had to do is I've had to sit down and discuss with myself what I've wanted in life. And I kept telling myself, oh my gosh, I want this so badly. Like, I want this so badly, but how would I make that work? And so one day I took a piece of paper down and I said, okay, for me to achieve these goals, I would need to do, this, and that. And a lot of those things were on the list was, you got to build a following. And how I kind of pursue myself is almost like a version of like a YouTuber almost. Because a lot of those people, a lot of them are like vloggers, they're short. Some of them don't have a particular, criteria to who they are, but they build enough following to where they can make it as a full-time income and literally do what they want in life, no matter what kind of YouTuber you are. And so one day I kind of had to pursue myself as that a little bit. And I said, I'm sure it's throwing me off as my criteria. I'm not going to be able to do as many things as other people are going to do, and that's okay, but that makes me unique. And so I had to take my height to a whole new level where I said, maybe being tall is a bad thing. And I know that sounds awful when I say that because, it's the agency thing. They look for girls that are tall and skinny and have this pretty look. But for me, I said, maybe that's what needs to happen is someone needs to pop the bubble. That's what needs to happen. Is you need to break the tradition.
I love that, and I was actually going to mention that. It's sort of to take things, and I think you mentioned it already. You said right in the beginning when I asked who's Breona Wilson, you're like someone who's willing to do things that haven't been done before, and which is super cool, and I can see that in what you're saying now. Is that you want to break the bubble, you want to break the ice, you want to change what's perceived as normal. Short people can model too, you know what I'm saying? So I like that you have that attitude, and I can only hope and pray that you are able to grow and continue to grow and pave the way for so many other, young girls who quote unquote have that quote disadvantage of not being tall and flip it to be something that's actually a positive thing and a good thing. And it's a level playing field for sort of everyone, which is really nice. But throughout your career, throughout your 10-year career, what has been the one thing that you said you've experienced that changed you, that changed your life, maybe as an individual or as a creative? What is that one thing that you can point out and say, this entire journey, this entire experience, this is the one thing that really changed me?
I think the one thing that really changed me was, so do you know how, there's like New York Fashion Week, it seems like each country has their own fashion week. There's Milan, Paris Fashion Week. Each country has their own little show, And we have brought our state finally made ours, and it's called Utah Fashion Week. And all these girls were like 6 feet or taller. Like they were so like they were giants compared to me. And I felt, oh my God, I felt like a little elf. I felt so short. But what ended up happening was one of the girls, her name was Jamie, and Jamie had gotten sick. And she was 6'2", but she was a good friend of mine. And she personally, she texted me and she's like, hey, guess what? I really can't do this show. But I think, I know you're short, but just, talk to this person, see if they'd be willing to accept you anyway, because I know you have experience. And sadly, I do not remember the director's name. But I messaged them and I said, hey, my friend Jamie said she'd like me to take her place. And obviously, like a casting and stuff, they went through my photos, things like that. And they said, you know what, with heels, we could make this work. And so in heels, I'm 5'9.5". So I'm almost 5'10". So I'm almost tall enough for it. So they made it work. They approved me and they gave me everything I needed. And I went to training for a couple of weeks for the show and stuff. And it was insane. Like they were passing out, the Fashion Week pamphlets with my name printed in it with all the other girls. I mean, it was insane. So to be the shortest girl out of like 36 women, and we were doing this entire runway with gowns and bridal. It was like it literally felt like New York Fashion Week. And I was the shortest girl. And it felt insane to think that all these girls were, giants. Like they were 6 feet taller than me. And I was or what felt like the shortest girl in the room. And I was sitting there and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the shortest, or what seemed like the shortest girl in the room. But, they took me because I had a look. They didn't care about my height. And so that's what really hit me, that made me say, oh my gosh, there's a way you can break the cycle. You can do it. I mean, not very many people will do it, but you can make this work. And ever since that experience, seeing my name printed, in a pamphlet and just looking at my name and just going through the cameras, and we had literally cameras, even news channels. I mean, we had people there surrounding us. And I think, I think the second experience I had, these two experiences really changed me. And my second one was kind of the same thing. Some girl, a designer, had messaged me and she's like, hey, I love your look. Would you love to be able to participate in the show? And I was like, yeah. And it was called hairspiration, which is a big word. But it was the same thing. We sold out. It was literally like an opera center. Like we sold out. It was stories tall of just, you could see people for stories tall on stage. And they said it was something like 3,000 people had showed up for this show. And I was so nervous. But I did the show and I went and I did not know at the time, no one really told me, but we were, I guess, kind of split up into like 4 different, categories, and my modeling team won. And, we won and we were on stage. People, there was like 4 different TV channels there. And I sat there.
Oh my days. This was big. What?
I know, it was big.
What?
I mean, and afterwards we had a red carpet event and we were the girls, and it was insane. They were like, screaming our names, and I was like, it was insane. And I sat there thinking, from these 2 experiences, I thought, oh my gosh, this is actually what success feels like. I mean, I know that's kind of a crazy thing to say, but for me, who, a girl who's short and who's tried so hard, those 2 experiences to think, wow, I can be featured in things. I can have people that really respect me, and they look past my height. They look past all the fact that I'm short. They look past all these different things, and they see a girl with a unique look, or a girl that might actually have something. And those 2 experiences have just flamed my motivation for 10 years. Because I've sat there thinking, oh my gosh, if I can do it back then, or in the last couple,
I can do it again now.
Yeah, I can do it now, and nobody can stop me. And so ever since then, it's been a really big motivation for me to just pursue it.
Yeah, I can. Sounds like a David and Goliath story. It's like these big people out here, and you are slowly. And I mean, it's things that you're talking about now, wanting to do to break the ice, to pop the bubble. But it seems like it's kind of just written in your past already. It's God sort of showing you that you've done it before, you can definitely do it again, which you said. So I think it's super cool, and I'm not surprised that those are the situations that changed your life, but also fueled you to continue moving forward, which is super cool. But I think you also talked a little bit about getting a lot of messages and a ton of messages, and I can only imagine what it's like to have 100,000 followers on Instagram. But I'm sure there's tons of girls and tons of people who ask you questions and want you to be their guide and their mentor and things like that. How do you deal with that pressure? And the fear of probably not being able to respond to everyone when they need your help.
So that's another really funny question. Because I've been trying to break the ice, a little bit, because Instagram presents this perfect lifestyle, that your life has to be perfect. And so there was a recent post I made, where I talked a little bit about my personal life, and I even mentioned it. I was like, guys, my life isn't.
I saw the post.
Yeah, and I talked about a little bit about that, and I was like, my life isn't perfect. I do struggle. I have problems, and you guys think that I'm like this great person, but I have issues. And so I try and find time. You feel a little bit of pressure, not all the time, but every once in a while, you'll feel the pressure, when you start, finding out you're being featured in things and stuff. And so you almost have to feel like you almost have to be held to the standard sometimes. And so I can really understand in a lot of ways. And it feels so weird, if you don't mind me being honest. It feels weird because you see, Victoria's Secret, or you see David Beckham or Beyonce. You see all these people with a really high following, which I can't imagine the pressure they get. And in a really strange way, I can almost relate. I would sit there and look at all these accounts, and I reflect on it, and I kind of think to myself, oh my gosh, like I almost know how they feel. Like I almost, and it's so weird because, smaller accounts, they can do all these cool things and stuff, but I started realizing the bigger, with the accounts, the more pressure was adding on. And so in a lot of ways, on that kind of Instagram platform, I'm starting to relate to how others are starting to feel when you have to be that standard. So to break that ice, that's why I made the post that I did, because I was like, guys, listen, I have problems. I'm not perfect. And so I wanted people to not almost see me as like this perfect person. And I think that's the problem with Hollywood and all these different, acting celebrities in movies, and all this big stuff. People start to foresee these people as perfect, and that they cannot do any kind of wrong. And so when they make a mistake, people basically crucify them and for the smallest mistakes that they make. It goes back to that perfect lifestyle. And I feel it, I understand what they're going through. And it feels weird for me. So whenever I see a celebrity crying on TV saying, I made a mistake, and I'm like, yeah, you made a mistake. I actually understand what you're going through. It's stupid. It's absurd. And to answer your second question is, every once in a while, I will find usually one day a week where I commit to 2 to 3 hours to answering every single message I get.
Wow.
And no,
that's a lot.
It's a lot. But the only reason why I've tried to be better about really committing to my fans and trying to talk to them and answer questions, because I get messages all the time. And what really hurt me was one time I got a message from a 16-year-old girl, and she said, I really want to model. I really want to, you're my inspiration. I want to be like you when I grow up. And I was hurt, but I was loving at the same time. But she said, and I replied back to her message, and she said, she messaged me back, and she said, I want you to know that I have messaged so many celebrities, so many people I look up to, and they don't ever make time just to talk to me because they think they're better than the rest of us. So she said, the fact that you were willing just to give me one reply back, even if it's a short message, really tells me that you really take the time to know me. And I almost wanted to cry because I was like, oh no, she thinks that I'm like this great person. I felt so bad because I was like, oh no. And so I almost felt like, the celebrity thing, you get put on this pedestal, And I don't think people, celebrities ignore people or fans on purpose. Is that, we get really busy. We're trying to, and we're trying to work 12-hour shifts. And so we get so busy on set where we don't have that time to sit and keep answering 400, 600, 9,000 messages. We don't find the time for it. And so whenever we do have time, we want to relax. So it's really hard to like have a personal life and work at the same time sometimes, And so after I got that message from that one girl, I pretty much vowed after that. I was like, I gotta do better. This is ridiculous how people are feeling ignored, but then you expect them to buy tickets to come see you or do meet and greets.
Yeah.
So
it's so deep. It's so deep.
Yeah. I feel like I've taken on to a personal level where I said, if they are committed to you, you need to be committed back. That's how this works. And so that's how I really love a lot of my favorite YouTubers, the shows they watch, and a lot of these YouTubers I watch, there's only a handful that I'm subscribed to. And a lot of them have talked about the same thing. They talked about, how they'd have girls that would run up to them crying and tell them how much, they love them. But that they won't answer messages, and they feel so horrendous because they're like, I haven't been making time for them, but yet we expect them to buy our fan merch, to come see us in person. And so it's almost like cheating the friendship of a fan, and it's not right. And so so if you check on my Instagram, I have gone to every post I've made to the best of my ability, and I have tried to reply to every single freaking comment. And I try to answer every message. Like I get so booked with time and just trying to do everything. But yeah, and it really is the same thing. And because of the reward of me answering back to fans, I get more of those messages. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I actually can't believe you replied to me." And so, you get this pressure. And I even had a couple of girls that would screenshot it and put it in their stories. They're like, "Oh my gosh, she actually replied to me. Oh my gosh." And they start freaking out. And I'm like, guys.
I'm a human being. I'm a normal human being.
I know. And no, that's what I'm talking about. You start to feel that perfect pedestal. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I feel bad when I see these, these girls like Beyonce or Rihanna, and they have 60 million people. And I can not only imagine the messages, but the pressure. The pressure is so high, And anyway, I hope that answered your question. I know that was kind of a deep thought.
It definitely answers the question. And I love the realization that you have. And I only hope that so many people could realize that. I think it's the concept, use the word of cheating the friendship, expecting fans to invest into your content and spend money and time into your content, but you're not willing to do the same. It's kind of like a cheat. So I really love what you have going on, and I can only imagine, how hard it is for you to make time. But I definitely do appreciate your heart, and I think it definitely says a lot about who Breona Wilson is as an individual, and the kind of heart you have, which is super nice. And I only pray and hope that you continue to be that way, and a lot of other people are inspired to be that way as well. It's such a beautiful thing, honestly. But it feels so short, but we're almost clocking our 30-minute mark, and I only have about one more question for you. Yeah, I'm good, really. But yeah, I just want to ask you what your favorite part of this entire thing is, this entire journey, the entire process of being in a creative space and working. Like, what do you enjoy most about it?
Believe it or not, it's probably the hard work.
Wait, what?
The hard work. Yeah, no. And that's the funny thing is, it's kind of a short but weird answer. People, I've heard a lot of YouTubers or other models say, "Oh, I like getting the autograph. I like getting, my name shouted out at me." And I'm just like, you sound like a sociopath when you say that. Well, no, really, because that's how it sounds. Because it sounds like they enjoy the ego, like they enjoy having their name screamed at them. They love it, and I'm just like, that's almost disgusting. Yeah. Like it sounds like I mean, again, it's the cheating friendship, because to me, it sounds like you're not thinking about the fans, you're not thinking about content, you're not thinking about future work, the impact you can have on people. You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about how it's going to make you feel. It's not that's not cool. So for me, the hard work I really enjoy is gaining the respect from the hard work, because there's been so many times, from runway shows, I would be there from 5 a.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning. I would work, 16-hour shifts. But for most people, they're like, oh, come to the runway show from, from like 6 o'clock to 7:30, so from customers or people who come to the shows, it's like a 1 hour, hour and a half.
It's a one.
Yeah, but no one
don't get
really
to see the behind the scenes.
Yeah, but for me, I get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to 6 hours of walking the runway in shoes that are 4 times smaller than my feet, getting 12 blisters.
Wow.
And I'm out here. I'm not really eating. I'm not really sleeping, and I'm working really hard. But at the end of the show, you can tell that people can come up to you and they can say, I really love what you did. And that's what makes me happy, is not the shouting of the name. It's not, the fan, because I have fan artwork. But I know you can't see, but I want to show on camera because it's going to come to what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And most of it is I'm tagged in. So that's the fun part, is on Instagram, I'm tagged in a lot of fan work, but I know you can't see it, but a young lady did this of me.
Wow.
And I feel bad that you can't really see it, but you'll see it in a minute though.
Okay.
But she did this really cool, it looks like me obviously, but she did this, full body portrait of me. And that's the respect I love, is she messaged me and she's just like, I love what you do. I love the hard work you put in. You don't turn into this, ego. You don't turn into this diva. And I think the other part I really enjoyed about it is when I'm on set with photographers, I'm on set with, all these different designers and stuff. That's the compliment I've always gotten, is the number one comment I get all the time is they're like, you're so easy to work with. And I ask them all the time. And I said, what makes you say that? After 16 hours of working together, a lot of them will usually say, again, from photo shoots that, a couple hours, things like that. But all of them always say, they said, because we've had girls that just demand things. They demand food. It's like a celebrity, basically. They deserve, they want to be treated like a goddess. And at the end of the day, we're all people just trying to make this project work. Instead of And so, that's what makes it easy for me, is I enjoy the hard work, because, you get respect from designers, you get respect from photographers. And so when I gain the respect of them coming up to me and saying, you have just been amazing to work with. And so when I earn that respect, I can say, okay, these kind of people will probably rehire me because I wasn't rude. I didn't have an ego on my shoulders. I was humble, and I took it upon myself to be not complain at all. I do my work. And so when I go home at night, I can feel good sleeping at night, knowing I didn't disrespect anyone. I earned my credit to my name by being who I am and being so devoted to my work, but to fans as well.
That is such a blissful thing. And it's interesting because it's something that only and you can feel and you can see. It's not something that's tangible or something that people can see. And I know a lot of people, their favorite parts of what they do is something that's very physical, something that we can all see. But knowing that you've earned the respect of people, and just being alone at home and feeling that sense of, I didn't respect anyone and I feel proud and happy about that. That's such a personal and intimate thing that only you get to experience, which is super cool. And I appreciate that you can share that with us. But when you initially said hard work, I was like, what? How can that be your favorite part? But it's all making sense now, and I get that. It's such a really nice thing to live by and stand with, and that's super cool. I just don't know how many minutes we have left on the recording.
I can tell you. Hold on. 10 more minutes.
awesome. That is super cool.
You're good for about another 2 to 3 questions.
Okay.
Depending on how much I want to talk.
Okay, great. Lovely. My next question would be, what are your plans for the future? As a creative, as an individual, what dreams, what goals do you have? And so on and so forth.
Oh, you should have not asked me that. That's a big question. Because here's the problem. Here's the problem with me is I like to make 10-year plans. So whenever somebody asks me that, they're like, "Oh dear hell, I should have never asked you that."
You start going year by year by year by year.
Yeah, because I'll start talking and they're like, "Okay, actually, never mind. I just meant the next 2-year plan. I didn't need you to talk that much. I need you to shut up. That's what I needed to do. Shut up."
So funny.
So I get nervous when people ask me that because I'm like, oh, they don't know what they've just opened.
Nah, I'm all ears. I'm ready.
So I feel like my goal for myself is creating fan merch and being able to really be dedicated to my page. And I think that's a lot of people things that, again, what I talked about that people don't do is they cheat the fan relationship, and it's not cool. So for me, for my goals, I would love to be able to just really grow my following, and then from there, I have this silly goal. I don't know if anyone would be down for it, but I'm just open-minded to ideas. Is I would love to be able to almost create my own self TV show or YouTube show almost. And I've tried to explain to some people what that would portray. That could be me having a cameraman and they just following from my behind the scenes, and we'll do Q&As and the reason why I want to do certain shoots and stuff. And I really liked the idea of almost like a meet and greet for every other episode would be to invite a fan to do the shoot with me.
Wow!
Yes,
I love that.
Yeah, just to really, to just really let them experience not only from. It can go from a really Instagram platform, but a really personal experience to have them on set with me. They could talk and hang out with me and really see how I work and just see, how I try to make it a very humbling process, and to see that I guess maybe I don't have an ego on me. But yeah, I think that'd be fun. And I think if it ever got to a point, it'd be fun to be able to not only have fans, but again, that's a whole production of things that take some time to work on. But I think not to only have fans on there, but to invite. Have you ever seen the YouTube show with Kevin Hart? What the Fit?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I idolize this show, man. I love it. I've seen every episode. It's so stupid how much I love it. Because Kevin Hart reminds me of me. He just got this ghetto but happy, but just petite small energy going on.
Yeah, he does.
So, and what I like about him is what he kind of goes after what I want. He invites different celebrities or different YouTubers, and he has people with him to really make it a very fun personal experience.
Yep.
And I think that's something I would want to do with my show. Is, again, I don't know what I'd have to do to make it happen, but it's hard work, in progress, but that's okay. I would want to, invite fans every once in a while to just really, just to really be in the experience with me and to come to shoots, or maybe start slowly inviting maybe other YouTubers or other people to, to really do some really fun, crazy photo shoots. I know there's photo shoots underwater, there's even one, it's in Africa, and they rent out lions for you to come to the zoo and model with them and
wow.
Stuff like that, where I would be down to go work with these lions, and and I know fans would probably be like, hell no. They're like, no, you die alone. But yeah, no, I think my 2 goals would just be try really to create this personal show, but to also create fan merch and to really be able to fund a way for myself to connect with fans and travel and be able to create this show. So if I could have some way to, have the fan merch and support myself like all these other girls do in a lot of different ways, but to also use it to create this show and make it so personal to where fans can really get to know me. And just, I think that's just my goal. It's just those 2 goals, but it's a big mouthful, but I can make it happen.
It's such a beautiful thing. And I think like I said, we're getting to know Breona Wilson. I definitely think you've got a big heart, and you really have a love and care for people. It's I can't think of any kind of celebrity who's ever done anything like that. To create a show in an environment where the fans really get into their business and they really get to know them. Different from a meet and greet, spending an entire day or an entire afternoon with someone you look up to is different from meeting and greeting where there's 100 other people. So I love that, and I'm going to pray and hope that it comes to fruition, that you can get the resources and the team that you need to get behind it to see it come to life, which is super cool. But I only have one more question left for you.
Okay.
And that's
you're good because you got about 5 minutes, so you're good.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so I've got one more question, and that's what do you wish you knew before you stepped into this journey? And I know we learn a lot of things out of experience, and that's just how it is. Some things we just have to go through them to learn them. But if you look back and you're like 13-year-old you, 14, 15-year-old you, if there was advice you could have been given at the time, it would have really been helpful to know it before you entered the journey. What would that advice be?
I think I would have liked to known about, and again, it's a big answer, but my short two answers would be: I wish I would have learned about the predators that were involved with it. There were some girls that I had heard about with the agency I was with at the time that were sexually assaulted, and they were 13 and 15, and they didn't do a background check on this photographer. They didn't do anything. They just hired him right off, which I felt was right off the street. Like, I feel like they didn't give these girls a fair chance. There's been many times where I got really close to being sexually assaulted at photo shoots, inappropriate comments, things like that. And I when I look back on it, if I ever had a daughter or a friend come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to be a part of it," I would say, just be cautious. There's a lot of photographers that disguise themselves. They can have a great portfolio. They can have the world's most expensive camera, but when you start shooting with them and you're alone with them at a studio, that's when things can happen, and you just need to be very cautious about who you're with. And so I recommend to do a thorough background check on the photographer, ask for recommendations who've worked with them, or just bring a friend. I've almost had to learn that the hard way when I very first started, and it's not a very pleasant experience, because that's something, as you get older in the industry, you learn, and you have to live with that. And it's, and it's not a very great feeling to live with, this could have happened to somebody else if I would have said something. And so it's not a great experience to live with. And I think my second thing is the disrespect. There's a lot of jealousy in it. There's a lot of girls, I can't tell you how many girls would just, if you don't mind me saying, they talk shit about each other. There's some, they would go to auditions or castings, and then some girl would leave the room and every girl would be talking crap about her. And I would sit there and think, oh my gosh, this is not how this is supposed to work. You talk about, how she looks skinny, or you don't know if she has an eating disorder, or, things like that. And you guys make fun of her. Or some days, they'd have a plus size model and they'd make fun of about her weight or things like that. And so I'm learning that it's like high school. People will talk crap about you. And you just kind of need to be prepared to stay in your lane. That's what I've learned is, if you get involved with a fight, if you get involved with any kind of form of conflict, verbally, emotionally, and you get caught in it, you're going to sink down with the rest of the boat. So usually what I do is I try to be uplifting. I try and motivate other girls. I try and be respectful again when I'm on set. I give compliments, things like that. And then I leave it at that. I don't try and talk crap, because it's literally like high school. Word will spread fast. If someone finds out you were talking crap, it's going to spread, and you're going to get caught for it. So it's better just, if you don't, it goes back to what Mama used to say: if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it.
Don't say nothing.
It's like, don't say nothing, just shut up.
Yeah, well, that's big. It's sad to hear that something that's supposed to be so beautiful can turn into something that can be so scary and so dangerous at the same time. So yeah, like you said, just the advice is to be very careful moving forward, to do thorough background checks, to, I think, have a friend around. It's just makes me so sad, so angry to know that, you know, art forms and creative spaces that are supposed to, allow us to be free and, express ourselves as much as we can, just make us feel a little bit insecure sometimes, a little bit unsafe, which shouldn't be the case. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. Thank you so much for being here again and taking time out of your schedule, sitting down with me and hassling with the with the Zoom for like 15 minutes.
I know. Because you got like 40 seconds left, and I'm just like, oh, good, we finished it on time.
Okay, just thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
I thank you. Bye bye.
Oh my goodness!
Yay! And on my camera it says like 30 seconds left. Like you finished it. Good job.
Just in time.